if you love your mom so much, how could you treat women so badly?
Because he wouldn't treat his mom that badly, but no one measures up to your mother, so you don't care about the way you treat other people. Hey.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Thinking Out Loud. I am Lisha.
And I am David.
And we are back. It seems like no time to you all, but for us, it's been quite a while.
It's been a day or two.
Or 30 or 60, whatever. So, how have you been?
I've been good. How are you?
Good. What's wrong with him?
I was trying to hold back a cough at the same time.
Okay, let's just jump right into this because you tripping today. Okay. All right. So, as promised, today we are going to talk about the dynamics between moms and their children. That's going to be our only topic because I think that there's going to be some interesting dialogue with that. Last time we talked about it, we were talking about mother-in-laws wearing white to their son's wedding and how inappropriate it was for anybody to wear white. But David mentioned that the people who do it the most are the mother-in-laws. And we kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that dynamic, why we think that is, and kind of just go from there. So do you have any preliminary thoughts?
No, this is just an interesting topic because we both have mothers and we both have the way they have to navigate around each other's mothers. So,
what do you think that has to do with this topic?
I thought we were just talking about mothers and how they interact with their children.
Okay. Today I have wine from my house that I made. Thank you.
Yeah, we're drinking the same thing today.
So the very first time, I want to start here. The very first time that I ever heard about mothers treating their daughters different than their sons was an episode of the reality TV show with Ray J and Brandy. And Brandy was basically crying on this episode saying that it's not fair. Ray J gets treated differently than she does. No matter what he does, it's always okay. And no matter what she does, it's always an issue. Obviously, this is very old. And I'm certain that the dynamics in their home and their family have changed, maybe not. But you'd like to think as people mature and change that things would change. But I remember sitting up there thinking about it and I was like, Brandy tripping. Hey, you know what I'm saying? That's a mom. Moms are always going to treat their sons and daughters, all of their children equally. But as the episode unfolded, it became evident to me that Brandy might have a point in that the little things in the episode that Brandy was doing that weren't that bad. I think it was like an outfit and where she was going and some things of that nature was such a big deal to Mama Norwood. But, Ray J was out here, I think, cheating on a girl with another girl. And that didn't get as much backlash from Mama. So between our last episode and this episode, I try really hard to find some actual psychological real data. And unfortunately, I couldn't find any. My personal opinion is that it happens more in the Black community. So maybe it doesn't get as much, right time, I'll say, or media time or research.
I disagree.
You don't think so?
No. Growing up, I watched a lot of sitcoms and stuff growing up, and they would always be the they would always have that same dynamic about one child getting treated different than the other, male or female. It was always a difference in treatment. So I wouldn't doubt. I doubt that it's a cultural thing. I think it's across the board. Personally, I think that it'll be across the board.
Do you feel like it's first child, second child, middle child, girl versus boy? Do you think that it's a cultural thing? I know that in some other cultures, men are viewed as more valuable than the women are.
There are cultures like that. I've also seen that middle child syndrome is that, they don't get the attention anymore because they're not the oldest and they're not the youngest, so they kind of get forgotten about. I've seen where the oldest child gets what's that word they made up now? Parentification or parentified, where they're made to be the parent of their younger younger siblings because their parents, just kind of pushed all that responsibility on them while they were still living their lives. I'm assuming, I never had any of that kind of reaction or that kind of action in my personal life. As far as I could tell, I'm the youngest, and my brother. I only got a brother with my mother, and he's the oldest, like I just said. So I didn't feel like I got treated any better or any worse than he did. But I would have had that conversation with him to see if he had any kind of feeling that way. I don't believe he does, but we're grown men now, so it's definitely a difference in the way we interact with our parents at this time.
That's interesting because when I was growing up, so I'm the oldest. My parents have 5 children. I'm the oldest. There's me and my sister. Then we have a brother, and then we have 2 younger sisters. Who in some instances, my 2 younger sisters are young enough to be my children. If I was my mom, they would be my children. So right now I'm just going to talk about me and my sister. So the second oldest child. Luckily, I had a relationship with my parents, and that if I had a concern, I could bring it to them. And we could have, even from a young age of mine, we could have honest, mature parent to child conversations. And I can remember that one of the things that I mentioned to my mom was the fact that I have to wait for everything. But my sister, who is 18 months younger than me, whenever I get it, it's okay for her. I wanted old girl to wait her 15 years to wear lipstick. Okay. But if I was 15, she could wear lipstick at 13 and a half. And I didn't think that was fair. I don't feel like my parents were like paying favoritism or anything like that. But it was definitely something that I can remember bringing up to my parents as a concern.
That's funny because our boys are 4 years apart. And I don't believe Tamir had to wait as much for stuff because once his older brother got something, he was able to get it as well.
And as a parent now, I realize that was just ease, laziness, if you want to call it that. Now you all can go. But now that's not true because both of our boys still live at home with us. And our oldest son is an adult and he doesn't have a curfew. He comes and goes as he pleases, which is what it is. But our younger son, who's just graduating high school this year, he still has his midnight curfew.
That's true.
And he better get in here on time.
That's true. But that's only for the next
2 weeks.
2 weeks. So at this point in time.
But all of this time, they are 4 years apart. And,
for the most part, outside of a couple of a couple of outliers. He got everything his brother got when it was time. I mean, and you were right. It was laziness on our part.
But was it a privilege, or was it something that we just were able to give them at that time?
A lot of it was.
They both went to bed at the same time. No one got to stay up later than anybody else.
This is true. I just believe that we were able to do. We had a little bit more leeway in our thinking, so that Tamira was actually able to benefit a little bit more because he was the second child, and as we all know, the second child is easiest because you mess up on the first one.
Okay. So back to the subject matter at hand. The reason why it rang true to me about, or I remembered so clearly the episode of the reality show with the Norwoods, is because in my search for information pertaining to this dynamic of moms treating their sons different than their... Hold on, guys. I'm sorry. My son keeps calling, Lord. Okay, sorry, guys. We are back. Our son kept calling on some foolishness. Okay, so back to it. So we were talking about the Norwoods and the premise behind my search and my memories and all those things. So interestingly enough, in my little research I did online, I came across this article commentary on essence.com. And guess who is the commentator? Lo and behold, Sonia Norwood. And she's basically saying that one of her friends asked her about the phrase, raise your daughter, love your son. And she says she's never heard of this. But in the African American community, I like to call Black, in the Black community, there is this premise they call a myth. People don't believe it is a myth, that women have a tendency to be harder on their daughters because they anticipate their daughters carrying the same type of burdens that they carry, and they know what type of fortitude, mental, physical, otherwise, is required for that. And that since men get I won't say lighter go of it because that's not true, but are viewed differently by women, they're not held as accountable as women are. And I'll say, to a certain extent, I agree with that. I do. There are a lot of life skills that women are made to learn, sometimes even master. They're judged against it, whether they have households or not, or are married or not, or have children or not. Obviously, these are my inner thoughts, and I'm just saying them out loud so we all can think about it and comment on it. But let's just take, for instance, housekeeping, cooking, cleaning, things of that nature. If a woman doesn't know how to cook a meal, like, she's judged for that. I don't know how it is across the world, but in United States of America and Black communities, if you don't know how to cook, the people's eyebrows go up. You don't know how to cook. You don't clean up. You don't know how to wash clothes. People look at you. But in the very same vein, if a man doesn't know how to change an oil on a car, fix the furnace, replace the sink in the kitchen, fix the lawnmower, things that are just as needed and valued in a home environment, no one's raising their eyebrow and looking at them side-eye because they don't know how to, build a porch in the backyard. Or I can see it to a certain extent. Do I think it's fair? No, but a lot of things in life when it comes to the dynamics between men and women in society aren't fair. So yeah, I believe in it. I think it's a real thing.
Okay. But I think we're a little. Let's get back to mothers in the way they treat their children.
Well, I think that was the beginning of the point.
That's the beginning of the point.
Between how daughters treat their sons?
See, I always went by the notion, even when we had our two sons, that you boys are hard up front. You got to kind of get them in line early, because if you don't, they'll never be in line ever. Once they get past a certain age and they're out there, they're out there. And girls, they were always a little less like that until they got older. And then you had to try to make sure they stayed in line, or you taught them the right way to be. Well, you had to be a little stricter on them later in life than boys when you have to be stricter on them early in life. I don't know. It's weird.
Okay.
Are boys treated less than or given more free reign? We don't have girls, so it's kind of hard for
Well, explain what you mean by less than.
If it's raise your daughters and love your sons, you're not giving your sons the overall attention and raising them as they need. If a woman is told to raise her daughter and love her sons, then a man is supposed to be raise your sons and love your daughter.
Okay.
Do you agree with that? Is that the same on both ends as love your son, raise your daughter for men and women?
I don't think it's the same. Okay, so my only reference would be my own household. Was my father harder on my brother than he was on us? No. He was equally a taskmaster on everybody. But the interesting thing about that is that my mother was a taskmaster on us as well. So,
Was she as a taskmaster across the board?
no. In my personal opinion, no. No. But again, there were different dynamics between the age groups as well. So
okay,
it's not an apples to apples comparison when we just talk about how they treated my brother versus how they treated me and my sister or my younger sisters, which were a whole different generation. So I don't really count them in this conversation.
Why not? Why wouldn't you count them in this conversation?
Because things change, circumstances change, environments change. And so the way that you parent, as in the way that you do everything, should be adapted for the times and the situation.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay.
Do you think that your younger sisters had it easier than you?
I cannot say 100% because I wasn't there.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't live with them the whole time. So I don't know. I don't know what their day-to-day life was with regard to their discipline or general day-to-day upbringing. Do I feel like they had more freedoms than we had and they had a much more interesting childhood than we had? Absolutely. But again,
Okay.
Times and situations were different. So yeah. But okay, so we say that there's a difference, or there may not be a difference between how a mother treats her children in general.
In general, I don't see in my household when I grew up there was no difference. But we were 18 months apart. We were both boys.
Right.
In our household with our children, there is no difference because they're both boys.
Mm-hmm.
They're a larger time frame or gap between them.
Mm-hmm.
But there's definitely no difference in the way they're treated. Well, there is a difference in the way they're treated because our relationship between our boys in ourselves is different. And I only say that because they have their own personalities like most people do.
Mm-hmm.
And we work within their personalities and our personalities inside the household. That's just the way that it doesn't always work that way, especially when we were growing up. We didn't have an opportunity to have our own personalities. You had to do
Mm-hmm.
the hell mama said immediately and don't care how your personality work with it. But
okay, so just so we're on the same page, do you think that there's a difference between how parents treat their children? Not your parents.
that's what
People in general.
People in general, yes. There's
okay.
Yes.
Do you feel like there's a difference between how a mother would raise her daughter versus her son?
Yes.
Okay. So, do you feel like that way that she treats her son versus her daughter is in any way geared towards raise my daughter, love my son?
No.
And why do you say no?
I say that because you are dealing with two separate types of raisings.
Mm-hmm.
So you raise your daughter one way, you raise your son another way. So
do you feel like
raise and love your children to the best of your abilities?
So to tie this into our previous conversation where the topic was first brought up, do you feel like there would be an instance where a mom would wear white to her daughter's wedding? Because that's how we got here.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole different story, because when you fall in, those people are in their own mind the main character in the story. When you wear white to someone else's wedding, or when you do anything that makes you the center of attention at someone else's time to be center of attention, you have narcissistic tendencies, and you believe that you're the main character of the story, no matter what the occasion is.
Do you think that?
So yes, there's some mothers out there that would wear white to their daughter's wedding.
And do you think that is the same narcissistic attitude that would have a mother-in-law demanding to have the front seat and to have her son's wife in the back seat?
That
and
story,
would that be an issue if that was the daughter?
The problem, what goes on there is a little more nuanced, I'm going to say, because we have a relationship between a mother and a son that's went awry.
Agreed.
So that the mother believes her place hasn't put herself in the place, or her son, who probably needs to do it, hasn't put herself in the right frame of mind to be second, because that's where she's supposed to be when you get married to someone else.
And do you think that the dynamic between the mother and the son that leads to that type of behavior when he gets married to some other woman, is that related in an upbringing based on being properly raised or being loved?
In that case, I believe it's just loved and not raised.
Thank you.
But this is not a those situations are not across the board. So you're
none
looking
of the
at
situations are across the board.
I know, but I'm just saying these people are one-offs, not one-offs. God knows they're not one-offs, because it's a whole lot of, it's not normal behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So they're the outliers. That's why they're called what they're called. And you look around and you go, wow, who the hell would do that? But yeah, that's why most people are outraged by people who do stuff like that. and the people that's not outraged are part of the same group.
So for me, that type of behavior is a product of mama's boy relationship with the mom. We know for a fact that exists.
We do know that's for a fact that does exist.
And the root of most conversation or words that I hear from what people would deem mama's boys is, don't nobody come from my mama.
And you know why that is? Because that's what he was told all his damn life.
Agreed.
So that's part of the loving and not raising.
Okay, but when we first started off down this path, you said that you didn't agree with that premise. So I'm just trying to get an understanding.
Well, I'll have to look at the tape again. See, I don't know if I disagree wholeheartedly or not, but we'll see. See.
we gonna see. So I know that there are a lot of instances with. I agree with it. There are so many instances where I feel like the dynamic between men and women are different in a household. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be, right?
No, the dynamic should be different, but it should still be fair.
Mm-hmm.
So just because it's different doesn't mean it can't be fair. And that's all that's all you ever look for, especially in your house. Because outside your house, you're not going to find fairness.
And that's true. So to wrap this up, because I want to make reference to something else I found from emotionalaffair.org. Mama's boys and the predisposition to affairs, which I thought was very interesting. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll put the link down in the description if you want to take a peruse of it yourself. But the dynamic here was that moms have, some moms in some instances, let's be clear, have become so attached to their husbands, sons, that they treat them like husbands and give them the role of a husband in their household. And so when that young man gets ready to move out and go and do something else or be with someone else, get married and things like that, the mother is disapproving. She disapproves of the fact that he wants to be with someone. I almost want to say someone else, that he wants to be with someone, that she'll consistently find fault with her, the potential wife, that she'll make instances to insert herself into the relationship as much as she can, all the way up until that son can't make decisions in his household without his mom's input. I've even heard of instances where the mom goes on the honeymoon with them because why would you take her someplace you've never taken me? Who sits in the front seat? If you are taking me to the doctor's office, but mom wants to get her nails done, who takes the lift?
That's funny.
All of these are dynamics that I have heard about that occur in society. Sorry, guys, my son called again, so I don't even know where we were. We were discussing, the predisposition to the mama's boy and the predisposition to affairs. And they were saying that basically the son feels like he is cheating on his mother by holding this other woman in such high esteem. So much so that he ends up cheating on her to kind of, in his mind, equal the playing field. I cheated on my mom with you, so now I'm going to cheat on you with someone else. And that is supposed to be alleviating the guilt. That was pretty dang on deep. And
that's real
weird.
That goes into a whole different rabbit hole of why some things is wow. That could get
that can get very deep. But I will say this, I can think of instances where a person who calls himself a mama's boy is a womanizer. Not just to the extent that he cheats on her, but abuse as well. And so that to me was always interesting, and it's something that sticks out in my mind because I always felt like if you love your mom so much, how could you treat women so badly?
because he wouldn't treat his mom that badly, but no one measures up to your mother, so you don't care about the way you treat other people.
Which is weird.
It's very weird.
But I've never heard of that or seen that or can think of an instance where that was the case in a relationship where that man had a good, healthy relationship with his dad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I would even go so far as to say the best husbands that I know have good relationships with men. The men in their lives, their uncles, their fathers, cousins and things of that nature. So it's interesting the role that, because you never hear about a mama's boy when the father was in the household, do you?
Not to the same extent. No.
It's typically a single parent household.
Yeah, not to the same extent. You could still be a mama's boy, but it's not. It's men won't allow that dynamic to go too far.
Another interesting thing about it is that I often find that when there is an active dad in the household, the children like him more. The children like him more, even though he's quicker to discipline them and typically sometimes has a shorter temper, right? They still like him more. But then also, I think that also comes from the traditional dynamics that men and women play in a household, because mom's always telling you to brush your teeth and where's your homework. And then, dad gets to have that playtime, which makes him a little bit more enjoyable.
Until he ain't.
Until he isn't. But in healthy relationships, that those good times far outweigh the bad.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting topic. I'm certain that it'll come up more.
Man,
moms,
do better.
Let these
men grow up to be men.
Let these
boys grow
children
up to
be who they're going to be, and just provide them with guidance. Men, stick around so your influence is felt in the household.
That's a whole different political thing that we can.
It's a whole different political thing. It is, but
it can get rough.
I'll say this about it, and then we'll leave it. If you having babies all over the world, you can't give everybody the appropriate amount of attention. We're not talking about people who are incarcerated. We're not talking about people who have been victims of the system in one way or another. I'm talking about Joe, who got 5 baby mamas, and he ain't with none of them. That's what I'm talking about.
What about Erica, who got 6 baby daddies?
She there with all her cheering, though. She there with all her cheering, all 6 of them.
And that's why one of them gonna be her boyfriend for her life.
Oh, that's his thoughts, honey. We gonna leave it at that today, baby. Maybe we'll come back around to some more nuance of this topic on another episode. But for now, next episode we're gonna go back to light. We're gonna go back to light and
cheery.
And cheery. So thanks for hanging out with us today. Those are our thoughts.
Thinking out loud.